Okay, so this is a reply for Rosemary. Rosemary wrote, yep, let me find it. Here it is. Rosemary wrote, good afternoon, Kai. Remember, it's in the UK, guys, so it's afternoon there. We're early morning here at this time, and I guess we means myself and George at this time. If they had put the extra missing beam, I believe she's referring to the BMA at the deck, would that have helped? I'm sorry, I'm trying to read through my cracked screen again. Helped. Beginning to think Champlain Towers, and I know that Auto Check gets a lot of you guys. It gets me too. I know that Champlain, not complain. I know I saw Michael down here. You put comprehensive. I know you meant compression. I know how autocorrect changes our words. They've got me a few times. You guys, I think I joked around one time about Newtown, and I spelled it Newton. I said Newtown, Knew, and now autocorrect has learned Knew. And when I put that video up, I didn't put Knew. I put Newton, and it changed it to Knew. I've corrected it again. Let's see where that goes. No, I was just joking around that one time, and my autocorrect learned the new word. Champlain with the capital K. Champlain Towers was neglected from First Lady. That was a Freudian slip because I'm going to show you something on that. From first laying of the building, and after a case from first laying of the building, and after a case of out of sight and out of mind, buildings need to be checked more often and not 40 years later, and would work carried out immediately and not brush it. I know it says Bush because you see the capital, so I know that she didn't do that, right? It's brush, and then not brush it under the carpet. That was a capital B. They put Bush. Really. So her autocorrect learned brush is Bush. The court case has been put. I know $80 million for the residents. I thought it was 83, 85, whatever it is. That's a whole nother academic conversation about who should get the money, whatever. The short version is, look, the judge is in control there. He's making all the decisions, all the calls, whether they like it or not. The insurance companies have paid out full. That's it. They paid out full. You can't squeeze them anymore. So that's the case closed on that. There's no balloon payments. Now it's just a matter of if they're going to sue more. Not everybody is part of this. The 80 million. Some people are suing it separately. Kai, keep up the good work. Hugs for George and Bruce and other kitties. Yep. Thank you. Now I wrote back. I believe that would have bought more time, perhaps years, having that BMA in there. I don't think it would have just bought days. It would have probably been years. With that said, they would have maybe not had the same damage, and maybe they wouldn't have. They passed a 40-year report, and so maybe another 5 years from now it would have went down, or 6. So maybe it would have not signaled what the problem is, and then in which case we now know that they passed all these great laws to protect the people and not care about the municipalities making tax revenue and run on properties being sold. We know now that those laws have passed and that everything's so safe now. Oh, that's actually not true, is it? Yeah, it turns out government really still cares about just government and about their revenue. So there'll be no scare of the buildings because they did not pass. In fact, they said, oh no, it's going to be financially too stressful to all the people. So nope, safety's not first. Finances come first. So it didn't pass. Now, a couple of local municipalities have increased their 40 year to 30 year. Oh, big whip. That didn't structurally set guidelines for these engineers to be able to follow. This is a new new world that we're getting into with these buildings, specifically in Florida, with all this punch shearing going on, all this deflection in the decks, And this is all because of ACI. These buildings were following ACI. ACI is defective. This whole column concrete loading 40 years, it's now been tested. All right, they need to go back to steel. Steel allows it goes from column to column and beams. Column to column and beams, and then you span it with concrete. Yes, you're getting two-way slabs and one-way slabs mixed up in there, combinations. But we look at the Empire State Building and things like that. Those things are round. They also used a lot of pans, steel decking, and they put the concrete on. That made this integral system. There's no redundancy in this system of theirs. Deflection automatically starts towards failure. This deflection. Now they give a small amount of deflection that they are allowed. ACI is allowing, and I'm saying that's defective. Why do we have to have? It's not wood. Concrete is not wood. It can't really cycle like that. And if you start crumbling it, you got issues. Can you make it stable? Sure, but there's not enough training on how to make concrete stable and when to cut your losses. When to say, well, whatever's going on here isn't working. There's not enough training in that. It's a lot of proprietary stuff that I'm sharing with you guys, but it's not training that's out there in schools. It's not about failure, identifying failure. What would you rather have, an engineer that can build a building, which you don't need many of them, or you need engineers out there that can evaluate failing structures? Which one's more important? The failing structures, but they're not going to get paid either. All right. But in the end, all parking bridges, I call it parking decks, bridges. I mean, they got the same characteristics as a bridge. Their cars are above, their cars drive on them, and then they park on them, which is crazy. It's a live load, the turns to a dead load. They got they have fluid forces where they're driving hydraulically, slamming on brakes, things like that. Turning radiuses, parties, rain. They got everything going on with them. Parking decks, all parking / bridge structures is what I call them, should be allowed to collapse independent from the primary structure. That's in my opinion. So they should be allowed to collapse independently from the primary structure. Which brings us to, I don't know how I was able to do that because with the mouse thing out. Which brings us to my point is that these segments of the structure are still in place. This is on land, that's out here. This is probably a control joint right there, expansion joint and expansion joint that allow this section to fail. We get back to here, and all the images you're looking for, I look for, did the control joint work? And I say no if I see the collapse across a column, or there's no control joint, or it's over to the control joint. I want to see where the control joints are. This is FIU Bridge. That's the people that claim that they want to put their mouth inside here now, talk about it. That's that lady they have there from FIU, but yet she has not done a paper on the timeline of the FIU bridge collapse. So I find that insulting. These bridges, the segments are where they are. They're here and here, and so yeah, you see the entire collapse. So look for these segments, and I say segments, I mean where the control joints would separate from the building. The control joints allow for the separation of the structure, the failure of the structure, and segments. Control joints allow for that. There's probably a control joint there, which is expansion joint for the bridge deck, and one right here. Obviously, that nodal area, it might have had wow, that's amazing actually. This one's called Washington Bridge collapse. This one's interesting. We'll have to look at this one because I want to know. Okay, there must be individual truss systems then. This must be a port. See the portal area? It just must be for this frame system here. And then this might be another boxed frame system independently from this one. And they just appear to be a regular truss system, but they're not. They are not. That one's interesting. And then down here in the low, this one here, if it's not the same bridge, it appears it might be. With this one, a WSD, yeah, it's the same one, different view. Yeah, there's a bridge deck repair done. Work was done. You see the color of the asphalt compared to the color of road asphalt, and then here is the segment again, and then maybe that's another segment. You'd have to look at it. So I'm saying allow them to fail independently. Oh, I saw this one. I know which one this one is. Yeah, this is that one, a beautiful one. They slide this over in like 1 minute, a hot minute. That's the temporary structure. So that was the temporary structure they put up. And then when this was ready to go, they built this one out here. This is the road deck that's going to go in. And then whoop, they slid it in and called it a day. That was like, called it a day. It may have been 2 days, but it was pretty darn fast. I watched everything about that one. That was interesting, except for I didn't recall it just then with that image. It was more the replacement structure I was looking at. I didn't look for the pre-collapse imagery. Okay, so independently, it should collapse independently is what I'm arguing, that all these parking garage areas, including pool decks, that leave the structure alone. So there should be two inspections, and obviously the bridge deck guys are not doing that great of a job because these bridges are still collapsing, and they're collapsing days after they've had inspections. I can look at North Carolina, or was it South Carolina, with that cable. It was inspected 2 weeks before the collapse, but it had before the cable failure, and they had to shut down the bridge rather. But in that 2 weeks out, they didn't say, oh yeah, this cable's going to fail in 2 weeks. This cable's going to fail in a month. They looked at that cable. This is what's so critical about this. They looked at that cable. They inspected that cable. The bridge passed for another 2 years. And yet, that's a loaded statement for you guys. And yet, it's a one loaded meaning hint statement. And yet, they did not find that it was, I can't let that one sit like that. That's too much of a hint. The bridge was under constant evaluation because of the cables. And yet they didn't predict it. So I wanted you guys to debunk me, but I'll just debunk myself for you. I wanted you to see that they didn't know in 2 weeks' time. They were inspecting it about every 2 weeks. About every 2 weeks they were inspecting, and they didn't see it breaking within those 2 weeks. It didn't get called out. So they had a good history of inspecting that structure. It was under constant evaluation because of an issue they had, and yet, with all that previous data, inspections and all, they still didn't predict that cable failing when it failed. So your answer, Rosemary, is it would have probably bought years. Maybe it would have passed the inspection, and then and because of it, it would have caused a collapse. Might have happened, if at all, 6 years from now. But it would have maybe it would have passed a 40-year inspection. No work would have been done. The value is that it now reveals the government's agendas. It reveals to anybody who's watching this that you shouldn't buy any of these condos, that the government's not going to be looking out for you, that, yeah, you should cut your losses as far as I'm concerned with condos. If you were asking me about it, I would say, nope, can't trust them. Can't trust this. Can't trust this. All right, that's who said that? Can't trust this? Some of you guys got a sense of humor. You'll figure it out. So no. Maybe it's all about the reserves, and these things have no reserves and the willingness to do the repairs. New construction, hey, why would you ask me that? Why would you ask me about new construction being better? Steel is where it's at. All right, steel, and then the deck pan, you want to know how it's done. The deck pan, ultimately, you're going back to the 30s. The big tower out in the tallest one in the world, I like the idea behind it. I'm scared as shit of that building. That building has not been time tested. They're just doing some wildness. And we don't know if they're doing any evaluation of it current day. Is it creeping down into the ground? Does it have any fractures? What are the repairs? I tried to find it. I couldn't find any maintenance. It's like the architects and engineers did a design and they 100% nailed it. I find that kind of, you know, you don't really nail it when you do a one-off thing. You don't really nail it the first time off, unless you got some crazy big budget, and then you like, everything is, plus one, meaning that if it, you go 150% of everything's capacity. I don't know if they were doing that. I wish I wish I knew. I did look into the engineers and all that. It's not something public. All right, just want to share this with you. And Rosemary, I hope that answers your question. Is that just steel structures? If you see brick on the outside, you got yourself a nice steel structure more than likely, not a brick veneer more than likely. So brick buildings, probably okay. Besides, you can see the brick. If it's fractures, you can look at them real quick and you can see what's going on from the exterior. You can start evaluating it on the windows, etc. You have a lot more going on. These slab form buildings, just with the removable, no concrete pans. They rely on the steel of inside the concrete only. Yeah, no redundancy for me. I pass. All right, end the video. Bye.